This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, with a beautiful Toronto summer background behind me because, well, Toronto is my true home. And love Toronto. But folks, I turned 52 on July the 8th. And the previous 2 years, I have had people interview me on here, just I don't know, for fun. On my 50th, it was Jeffrey Mark, who's an entertainer and a little historian of his own. And last year, for my 51st, it was Nancy McLaughlin from Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. And those ones were done before my birthday. Couldn't get somebody before my birthday, but you know what? We got a great survivor here that's coming on. I figured July's my birth month, so we're still in July. So we're going to celebrate my 52nd birthday, and what better way to do it than to have somebody who just emerged from the hospital from a week because he's a survivor and a fighter. He's also the brooms guy. After all, does anybody remember what the mayor said? No, they just remember the guy in the photo. Yes, folks, we have the brooms guy tonight interviewing me for my 52nd birthday. Folks, I hand this over to Mr. Rob Mahoney. How do you do, Rob?
I'm doing good, Greg. So my introduction is as follows.
Mhm.
This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Rob Mahoney, aka the Bruins guy, straight out of Boston, Massachusetts. And folks, I have a third time birthday celebrator today, Mr. Greg Gilbert. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, I'm doing fantastic. And, I celebrated my 52nd birthday right because I went to see two movies that we didn't get here. We didn't get Maxine, we didn't get Kinds of Kindness, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck that. So I went to St. John, saw Maxine because I loved X and Pearl, and I enjoyed Maxine. I decided, you know what? Let's make my birthday weekend right. So I went and saw Kinds of Kindness a couple days after in Moncton because I love me my Emma Stone. So I went and saw Kinds of Kindness. And yeah, so that's what I did for my birthday weekend.
I've always wanted to ask this question. How did you come up with the name Python's Paradise? And when did you decide that it was time to make this a show that you wanted to do for up until now?
Python's Paradise. Well, the Python part comes from the fact that I've always loved snakes. Always been fascinated with snakes. And the python in particular, a nice dominant predator. I mean, those things in the wild can kill crocodile. In fact, they can kill a lot of things. But the African rock python, I've seen photos of them killing impala, if you can imagine. But I decided to go. Python sounded to be like a really good DJ name. I know the last name is Hyena, and I like the spotted hyena as well. They're also very misunderstood animals as well, because a lot of people don't like them, and a lot of people don't know really why they don't like them because they are important to the environment. You know, hyenas eat a lot of scavenge a lot and eat a lot of stuff that just rots on the savannah. They say that they got stomachs like cast iron, so they could eat in a sewer and still be fine. Um, Snakes apparently kill and eat more rodents and pests than birds of prey and cats, which I did not know. But snakes are expert hunters, so I went with the Python. Now, Paradise kind of came from the Brian De Palma film, The Phantom of the Paradise. You got you got Swan and his what they call the Paradise, and it's his own spot where it's his world, So I thought, a nice trick on words, Python's paradise. The show is my paradise, and as long as I don't have guests that aren't so friendly, which has happened a handful of times, but not much. But yeah, that's where Python's paradise come. As far as how did it come to be where it is, well, I started film criticism in 1996, and I used to write reviews, so I still do really. And not that it's online anywhere, but and in the 2005, my best friend Colin had suggested that I go down to CHSR, the campus station here in Fredericton, to see if because CHSR's got a lot of different shows. They got a book club show, they got a blues show, they've got a wrestling show, they've got shows where people go on and they perform their own audio stories. There's a metal show. There's a show called The Crazy Train down there. It's been going for so long.
I've seen it.
Yeah, that show's been going a long time. And we've had people as been part of that station. I think it started in 1969, if I might be wrong on that date, but I could be wrong on that date. And actually, no, it didn't start in 1969. It started way back in the early 60s. But we got somebody that's been down there. I'd have to look that up. I think we got somebody that's been there since 69, though. But no, it's gone back further than that, the early 60s. I think 1960 it came in fruition. You have to look that up. But nonetheless, it's got suggested to me to go down there. So the program director at the time, she eventually moved on to elsewhere, but when I called her, she was quite interested. They never had a film critic down there. So I brought my portfolio down there and pitched it, and she was very interested. And they trained me, and I got my own show down there where I played music and read film reviews in between. And I did that for 10 years. And eventually, how it came down to an podcast is a former colleague who was part of the show at the time. He came into it, I think, at 2013, and he had an interview lined up with Tommy Wiseau from The Room.
Yep.
And from what I understand, he had no way of recording it. And I said to him, are you going to just do it on the phone? Let's go down to the station, do it on the show, and record it so we have a copy of it. So we agreed, we came down, and we did it. Now, one of the things that he wasn't particularly good at was the time zone thing. When somebody says 10 o'clock, they mean 10 o'clock their time.
Yeah.
When somebody says, and this was one thing that he wrestled with, was 10 o'clock does not mean his time. It's their time. So, you got Los Angeles is 4 hours behind us here. You're 1 hour behind me in the East Coast. Then you got places like Hawaii or the UK or whatnot that, when somebody gives me a time, it means their time. So we wrestled with that for a long time. But nonetheless, the interview with Tommy Wiseau went off, and it was quite interesting. I still remember the program director, who's currently still there. And when Tommy Wiseau came on.
Yeah, was that your first interview?
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau was the first one. from the room, and my program director was looking through the window from Studio A with this "Who the hell are you guys talking to?" look on his face. But it was like after that, it was like if it was just Tommy Wiseau one and done, I would have been just fine. It just continued on as usual. But it was like, who else could I do this with? And my mind went back to my uncle who used to have a video store back in the 80s. From 1981 to 1988, he owned this video store before uh, going on to make Christmas wreaths, which he did very successfully at. Um, and but my mind went back to some of the movies I watched back then, and uh, I was like, first thing my mind went to was some of the females I had crushes on back then. It's like, could I get any of these people to actually come on and talk to me? And just as on a whim, I reached out to Adrienne King from Friday the 13th, who I thought was really cute,
Yeah.
and Lisa Langlois from the movie Class of 1984, who played Patsy, who I also thought was really cute. And I was surprised on the long weekend of May that year. I got a response from Adrienne King. I was at my brother's apartment and I just kind of leaned back on my chair and she said, yes. It was very surreal because I didn't expect that. Adrienne King said yes. And I had Adrienne King on the show. And I had a couple of other interviews that came through eventually. My former colleague got us an interview with Peter Subchinsky, who was a film critic. And David Grove had reached out to me, who did a Friday the 13th book that I don't know how he come across me, but I had him on. That was but fine. Then Lisa Langlois got back to me in June. And Lisa was the first one I did solo. And because for whatever reason, my colleague was not available. And I was not going to miss out on interviewing Lisa Langlois.
No.
And I had her on, and I had somebody from the station help me do that. And that went successfully. And I also did a tribute interview on Zoe Tamerlis Lund, which is something else I started doing. When somebody has passed away, doing tribute interviews. And I had Zoe Tamerlis Lund. She was in, of course, the movie Miss 45, a movie I'm very fascinated with. And her widow has been on the show 5 times talking about her. And those interviews are very popular.
That's awesome.
Yep. And anyway, I did 20 that first year. And I'd say about 7 of them I did by myself. And it was like, the more you do, the more you get confident. And of course, I'm a lot further now than I was back then in doing this. Now I'm doing these at my apartment because, with the pandemic that happened, I couldn't do them at the station. And Nancy McLaughlin showed me how to do them on Zoom. And I was like, this is so much nicer just doing them here. And then I was at the station tonight playing a couple of the interviews. So I'm still affiliated with it. And but it's nice to do them right here. And um, I've come a long way with it. A long way with it. I
do have a question about your former colleague. When did you realize right away, or did it take some time to realize that you need to do this by yourself? Because was he like holding you back, or was
you know what? I'm not going to get into too much detail about that, but he tried to slander me. And he was doing stuff with the station that was in a, let's put this way, between the stuff I did not know what was being said behind my back. But between Chris Waddell, who I've had on here as a guest. He was affiliated also with the X-Files, but he's affiliated with the station. And between the station manager and program director, he got suspended indefinitely. And it came down to that ruling. When I found out what was being said behind my back, I'm glad he wasn't in the same room with me. But
Well,
yeah, I'm not going to get into what was said.
no, it's all right.
But I'll
No,
but I'll say but
I was just
I'll say
want to know.
this. I'll say this. If he thinks what was said was true, why doesn't he prove it? And let's take it to court and prove it. That's what I would say to him. That was 2016 when this was all come to light, just before my first interview with Ted White, you know? And by the time I had Leslie Donaldson on, uh, which was April of that year, I was starting to hear about this kind of shit going on. So, yeah, but between the station, people affiliated with the station, and his former job at some place here in town, and one of his former roommates, if he ever pulls some shit on me, I've got a lot of people not only backing me up, but are willing to take him to the slaughter. I hope he moves on. I have moved on, but there's no way I can edit around those. But you know what? I don't make money at this podcast. I never have, and I was never out to get rich off it. But yeah, this was my show, and I know there's been a few times. I know with especially with Lisa and with Zoe, and a few of those interviews where I think it was deliberate that he missed those interviews because I think that he was trying to keep it so that me and my limited tech savvy wouldn't be able to do them. Well, there was people from the station that wanted to see me do them, and they made sure that I did them. But if, like I said, if he ever says anything about me again, and I'm not going to say what he said, I can
Fair
tell you
enough.
this. I can tell you this. It's not true, and I can prove it. But like I said, there's slander is a crime, and that's where I'll end that. He and I
Well,
closed doors on each other.
you did.
Go his
You
way,
made
and
a
I can
point.
go my way. Huh?
You made a point earlier about how you do this. You don't make money off of this, and that's one thing that me and you have a lot in common. We do this, just for the enjoyment of it. When did you start discovering the more independent scene of horror movies?
You mean like people doing the Indiegogos and stuff?
Yeah, like we're talking fan films, smaller independent movies, not just the name actors, but you've always been an advocate for getting the guys who other podcasts don't want. So when did you start discovering that world?
You know what? Number one, I think they started reaching out to me, and I think it was when my show got up and going. I don't have a whole lot of subscribers, and that's fine. I'm not here to compete with other podcasters. I do this because I enjoy it. I work as a cleaner. That's what I do for money. It's not a glamorous job, but that's where I get my paycheck, you know? Any trips I go, conventions I go to, I use my money. I use my money to do the conventions. But people were reaching out to me, and a lot of times now, like I haven't supported anything in a while because a lot of times
We'll,
now people
we'll get into that.
yeah, but in terms of just interviewing anybody, I grew up as a bully victim until people found out my affiliation was snakes. I got a picture taken with a 12-foot Burmese python on my senior year of high school. And I let known that I owned that snake despite not owning it, and people didn't fuck with me anymore. And my love for snakes has creeped a few people out, and that's fine. If it keeps people away that I don't like, good,
Yeah.
good. I'm not afraid to handle a Burmese python, But here's the thing, in terms of being somebody who was bullied growing up and being like the most unpopular kid in class or in school, I empathize with people that aren't given attention, with somebody who's an advocate of mental health. Um, I don't like seeing people. It's up to the individual to have their full potential met, but they got to establish that. But I don't turn people away, because who am I to say you can't come on my show when I know what it feels like to have people say you can't come into my world?
Yeah.
I had that all through school. I had one of my former supervisors from the cleaning job I work at come on my show last year, simply because she asked. She was curious and she asked. I had her come on and we joked about like she called me a few times to come and help her at locations where somebody had to be let go and they had to fix up the damage, and I would joke with this person a lot. So I had her come on. Um, who was I to? And people say, well, nobody's going to click on that or listen to that. Number one, how do you know? And number
Yeah.
two, again, it's not about that. And sometimes you don't know who's going to get clicks and likes. I'll give a good example of that. Scott Hand, who's an independent filmmaker online.
Yep.
I get people that criticize me because interviews, like they're in uh you call that, where they're on YouTube. They're on YouTube, but they're not available to the public. And I have,
Yeah.
yeah, and I have them scheduled for release, and I have people criticize me because, well, they're not, it takes you too long to release them. But I always send the link to individuals to put them on their platforms. And a
Yeah.
lot of times people don't do that. But they'll criticize me for not putting them out right away. I don't put them out right away because there's a lot of times where podcasters will do an interview, they put them out there, and then rather than enjoy what they've just done and accomplished, they're fretting around looking for the next interview.
Yep.
It's like they're shoveling food into their mouth and they're failing to savor the flavor, and they're just swallowing too quickly and waiting to shovel the next bunch in. I don't operate that way. I bring Scott Hand up because I've interviewed him twice, and both interviews are like in the top 5 in the year of their release, or top 10. Why? Like even the one that's unlisted right now on YouTube for this year is in that top 5. You know why? Because when I sent him the link, he posted it out on Facebook and whatnot, and it
Yep.
got views. I don't understand how some people don't grasp that. So you never know what's going to get views and what's not,
It's like they want you to do all the work and then sit back and blame you when the interview doesn't come out till a year and a half later.
Well, Bobby
when
Heckman,
when
God
they could
bless him.
already be doing it.
Yeah. Bobby Heckman, God bless him, and Blood Opera, both of whom I know, and I love both. But they have said this to me, and I'm like, you know what? I sent the link your way, put it up. But the day that my interviews catch up, where I've got to put an interview up and then wait for try to find the next one, they're going to be waiting a long time, because I'm not going to follow that I'm not going to do that because then you
Yeah,
become a slave to what you do. And I don't want to do that. I do this for fun, you know? And
exactly.
if people don't want to come on because they have to wait to, then don't come on. That's how I deal with that. Don't come on, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm glad I had them on when I did, but I'm not following into this where I got to be a slave to it. Not going to happen. So,
Well, what's funny about me and you know, we follow kind of the same path. You
mhm.
know, we both lost our jobs at around the same time. We both got jobs to replace them around the same time. We both do this for fun, and we also both enjoy the independent scene until something bad happens.
Let's go
And
back for a second. Let's go back for 1 second. We both didn't just lose job. We were both gaslit on
yes,
a
we were both
previous
like
job,
that. No, you're
you
right.
know?
You're right.
Yep. You got fucked over and I got fucked over. The difference
Around,
is that we're not living
around
on
the same time
welfare. We're
too.
working.
Yeah, around
Yep.
the same time too, and
Yep.
that was what the point I was bringing up is when independent films, they're great when they work,
Hmm.
but when they don't work and they don't hold their ends, and I'm only going to bring this up once because I know you've talked about this a million times,
Yep.
and I'm just going to bring this up one time. How did you originally get into 13 Fanboy? I mean, before all the drama, like,
How did I get into it? I think Debbie Sue Voorhees might have mentioned it in one of the early of the 5 interviews I did with her. And I think what had happened is I noticed that Tracy Savage was among the cast that they're going to have in it, and that sealed the deal for me. You know, I had a big crush on Tracy Savage from Part 3 growing up, and
a lot of guys did.
yeah, and she's been on 5 times, all on Boxing Day, so I look forward to that. And if she's at Frightmare in the Falls this year, if she is, and I'll find out whether this Part 3 reunion, whether she's going to be there, then that seals the deal of me going. But Tracy Savage was the reason I got involved, and I put 3K into that because I had the money where I could do it, and I
Yeah,
got on as a co-producer on it. I'm glad to have my name on it. I just don't like where everything went,
yeah,
and with and especially the way I was treated and how Carrie Yates was treated. Marketing was not a strong point behind that film. They can look at Terrifier 2 with how it was done right
yeah.
and how that film benefited, but that was how I came to it. Plus, they had other people involved with that film that I thought was really good. Look at this. Skittles. Skittles is joining us for a minute.
Nice.
You know, look at that. Skittles is crashing this interview. Yes,
Well,
my.
that was the point I was going to bring up about, you know, you talk about marketing, and I was involved in the part of the marketing at that point,
Mhm.
spreading the word, doing my promoting like I always did. But my chief complaint with Debbie Sue Voorhees was that a lot of other people weren't pulling their weight. And yeah, you can promote independently, you can promote online, but also like you mentioned how Canada didn't even get a 13 fanboy screening. Like who was supposed to be in charge of that stuff? Because that is why ultimately, and this is just me saying this, ultimately I think 13 fanboy failed.
It's funny because Terrifier 2 played in Toronto and they were done on one of those platforms and that film made money.
Yeah,
Um, I pitched to Debbie Sue about our theaters here, and that I was going to be in Toronto for one of the conventions, or either Horrorama or Frightmare in the Falls. I was going to be there for one of them. I said Toronto would have been a great place to release it, and Canada didn't get it. And Carrie Yates made a similar pitch about the UK, but I Here's my feeling. Carrie Yates and myself weren't popular enough. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to see the film on the small screen. Um, I probably shouldn't have seen it at all with the way things turned out for me on that. My contribution was not appreciated. And that's fine. Go find some more wealthy people or whatever to go support your shit. I don't
Yes.
need to anymore. But no, I remember one back and forth I had where she suggested that I set up at one of the cons at one of the table and play the trailer from, I don't know, my phone or laptop or something. And I'm like, number one, that costs me to do that.
Yeah.
And number two, you know what? If I wore the t-shirt, that's enough. I'm there to either, if I'm there with Lisa Langlois, I'm there to assist her. And number two, uh, I was more than happy to promote it, but I'm not going to rent space there to sit at a table with my number one. I'm not taking my laptop in there. It's too expensive, and I don't trust anybody not to lift it. Not that somebody would, but still, I'm just not going to do that. So the answer there was no.
Yeah.
So they they're looking for promotion, and they should have done it. They obviously didn't plan the marketing very, very
No.
well. Nope.
No, and that was my point. Is we talked about how terrified I took the same route and did
Yep.
the online thing, and they were able to get to places that 13 Fanboy, and it's too bad because I think 13 Fanboy had a great premise for their idea. I love the idea of a demented fan, someone that this is their whole livelihood, and to have all these people basically neglect you. I thought it was a great premise, and it could have had better results, but lo and behold, I think it actually ended up losing money if I remember correctly.
It didn't. No, it didn't do well. And you
Yeah.
know what? And I suppose there's some people, behind that's going to blame me for that. And to those people, I say, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
You know.
And they
Yep.
can blame me too while they're at it. So,
They'll blame me, you, Kerry Yates, and we we had nothing to do with that.
but
Uh,
on the brightest, that I just wanted to bring that up briefly because I know you're probably like this question again. But on the brighter side of independent, we both collaborated on a project called Social Distance.
yeah,
Uh, so you want to talk about your involvement with Social Distance a little bit?
I didn't have a big involvement with it, but I did pitch in. Vernon Wells was part of that project, and number one, he's been on the show, but number two, I also met him at the very first convention I ever did, which was Horrorama. He was seated very close to where Lisa was, and he gave me his card. And I remember when I had him on, I gave him a call. I told him, and he remembered me. And I've had him on twice, and we talked about social distance, and I contributed to that. That was a movie that turned out better than I thought it was going to, for the limitations it had,
Yeah.
turned out better. And Vernon Wells did well in it, and all the other actors in it did well. I remember Noelle Berger's in it, and she did well for the few scenes she was in.
Yep.
And yeah, I was actually quite pleased. I got it here on Blu-ray. And you were an executive producer on
I
that?
was the executive producer. I ended up getting credit for 5 awards, 5 independent awards.
Yeah, there you go. Congratulations,
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, social distance turned out really well. And for the limit, it just proves for limitations, especially during the pandemic, he knew how to do that. And I think part of the say the director's name because I'm going to screw it up.
Brian Luciano de Saglia.
Yeah, because I had him on the show, and I don't want to butcher his name, but he came on the show, and I think one of the things he did, because that movie could have been boring had it not been for the fact that the characters were allowed to be interesting. And
Yes.
each time they appear on screen, there's something different going on, and they all have different personalities. And Vernon Wells was Vernon Wells number one. He worked within the limitations. He knew exactly. He always keeping his hands, whether it's on file folders or whatever it is he had
Yeah.
around him. He knew how to take this and elevate his character. Well, the other characters did that too, and I like that about it. So um, that was the kind of stuff that worked in it. And when you get a really low budget, stuff like that can elevate your film beyond what it might have
Yeah.
been without it. So congratulations to him for making that work.
So being on both sides of the spectrum, being as a great experience and a bad experience, if someone came to you and said, "Hey, what do you think about me getting involved in independent?" What would be your advice?
My advice, tell them to go for it. But if they're going to make a film, number one, uh, first thing first, have yourself a good script, you know, interesting characters. Try not to make them generic, because if you make them generic, it's not going to work, you know. Number, the next thing I would suggest they do is go around wherever, look at where you need to shoot. Like if your scene calls for this or calls for that, try to find the most interesting locations to shoot it, because locations can add personality to your
Yeah,
movie, you know?
agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. Because where you don't have a budget to do visual effects, find a good location, and just even using lighting, specific lighting for something, can add a tremendous amount of personality to your picture and make it look slicker than it really is. So that would be my suggestion. Work with your limitations and elevate them as practically as possible.
You've probably been asked this 100 times, but I have to know if you could have any guest that you haven't had, who would be like maybe do a top three. Who are the top three people that you've been wanting to have and either haven't been able to contact them or you've contacted them and they're still kind of on the if.
Oh, gee, I was going to say Emma Stone, but I haven't reached out because I don't think she's a little bit above my reach. But yeah, I love Emma Stone. But in terms of people I've reached out to, well, Kimberly Beck said yes to doing my show when I met her at Frightmare in the Falls, but she's incredibly busy. But she's somebody I'm still trying to get in there. I've tried Amy Steele. I'd still like to get her. Haven't been able to get her yet. I'm about to give up on her. Let me see, top three. A lot of
You
times,
can name more if you want.
well, here's the thing. Oftentimes I'll look at particular movies, you know. I'd like to get somebody from Saturday Night Fever. Karen Lynn Gorney turned me down. Deborah Pascal has looked at my messages and hasn't responded. That's a bad sign.
Yeah.
But Saturday Night Fever is a favorite. I'd love to get somebody from that. Um, a lot of times that's what comes down to particular movies. In terms of people I want that, I know when this interview's over, I'm gonna think of some people too, but I mean Kimberly Beck said yes, you know, but I know I know she's busy.
Yeah.
Because I know I don't know the name of the person she's married to, but apparently I've been told it's Mike Judge's boss. So I'm like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Oh
Or
yeah.
no, no, not Mike Judge's, Seth MacFarlane's boss. So I'm like, okay, that tells me a lot. I wanted to get PJ Souls on here. I don't think that's going to happen, you know. But you know what? Here's the thing: if I don't get them, there's I always try to see if I can get somebody from movies I like. And I've been very, very lucky with a lot of movies I own, and I'm able to look at them, and it's nice to know I got this person or I got that person, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's some people I can't get that I want to get, and it happens. Um, I love the idea of doing tribute interviews, like the ones with Zoe Tamerlis Lund, for example, who went way too young,
Yeah.
but able to, but the be able to make her part of the show through the tributes is awesome. And Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter coming on in tribute to her, being able to make him part of the show. Audrey Hepburn's eldest son coming on, you know, Roddy Piper's
I
son
was
and
just
daughter
gonna bring
coming
up the
on.
Piper family. Yeah.
Yeah. I love doing the tributes when they happen. And I'll tell you one of the biggest misses for me, and this was such a disappointment, and it's nobody's fault, is I was in talks with having Olivia Newton-John coming on here. I had her manager on here, and number one part of it was scheduling,
Yeah.
and he was all in favor for it. The problem is, and this was not something I knew at the time, but I knew as it was closing in on the end, was her battle with cancer.
Yes.
And I know on that last year, he had said to me that we're going to try to make this happen. But she ended up canceling on some dates where she was supposed to perform. And before I knew it, she was gone.
Yeah.
And I sent her manager my condolences because he was in favor of her coming on my show, and that would have been a big break for me.
Yeah.
But that was the biggest missed opportunity for me, and it was nobody's fault. It was just her health, you
Yeah.
know. So I might see if I can get her daughter to come on the show because I know she's doing a
I was
lot of
just gonna
stuff.
say that. Maybe you should try to either get someone from her family or maybe one of the cast members. There's some of the cast members, they're not too
Yeah, but if I
interested.
have the cast members come on, I get them to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
You know, like I've had a few people come on from Greece, you know, I get them to talk about themselves. The interview's about them and her name comes up. I'm not going to do a tribute to Olivia Newton-John interviewing somebody from the movie because chances are that they're part of the movie. I'm going to interview them based on their experiences.
Yeah.
Like with Zoe Tamerlis Lund, for example, her widow came on and talked about her. I've had two other cast members from Miss 45 on the show, and we talked about Zoe, but the interview was about them, and I talked to
Yeah.
them about their experiences. But um, but the people I've had on, for example, Greece, this was before Zoe passed away, or not Zoe, Olivia passed away. But you know, Barry Pearl's been on, Antonia Franceschi's been on, who's one of the backup dancers. But because she was in Fame with a speaking part, so
Yeah.
we highlighted Fame mainly for the two times I had her on, which I think is a great movie.
Yeah.
Um, I had Eddie Deason on, you know, like these people, and I have the set decorator, Peter Friedman, on as well. Or no, Dave Friedman, excuse me, Dave Friedman on. And he spoke very highly of Olivia. Like everybody likes her, you know.
Yeah.
But generally, I don't get a lot of actors to do tributes because they have their own stories to highlight them, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So if I do one on Olivia, I'm going to see if I can get her daughter to come on. Look into that, you know, and do a highlight because I grew up with Olivia Newton-John, and
Yeah.
yeah, I love her music. I'm sad she went when she did. It was a missed opportunity for me, but it couldn't be helped, you know. Her manager was very open to it, and he kept in touch with me, but you know, and there could be another opportunity down the line, down the road where I get somebody, you know, if like I've had Tony Basil on.
Yeah.
I've had Tiffany on. Tiffany, of course, is not as big a name as Olivia Newton-John, but Tiffany back in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, had some couple number one hits there. So I
Yeah.
mean, you know, so
I'm that old too.
yeah, yeah. So you know, I've had some good people on, and the fact that I've had Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter or Audrey Hepburn's eldest son, that's pretty darn cool, you
Yeah,
know?
it is.
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
how high esteem they are held up to.
Then I think to me that's the coolest thing. Like I don't do interviews as much as you do, but I talk about movies I grew up on, and I have people listen to what I have to say about it. And I reflected the other day, saying to myself, "How cool is this? I grew up with all these movies, and now people are listening to what I have to say about this movie." It's it's kind of surreal if you think about it. It's like, did you ever think that to yourself? Did you ever think that, hey, people are going to tune in and care about what I'm going to say to someone that we all grew up on?
Hmm.
I mean, to me, that's the most surreal thing is that people take their time, whether you get 5 views or 500 views, someone's out there listening to you talk about a movie we grew up on, like Grease.
Hmm.
We'll use Grease for example. We all grew up on Grease. I love Grease.
Hmm.
But did you ever think to yourself, someone's gonna listen to me talking about a movie that we all grew up on and care to keep being a repeat listener?
Yeah, yeah. So so I'm happy with what I've gotten. I've learned to count my blessings. You know, if something is meant to be, it's meant to be. And I've had a lot of people have asked me why don't I monetize them. I'm not against doing that, but the same token, um, I've had some guests that don't like people. It's just like people selling autographs.
Yeah,
I've told this to Lisa. I said always personalize autographs because people can't make chances are they're not going to make any money uh, off your name being on it, like the individual's name.
yeah,
And I wouldn't want somebody selling my autograph. Not that it's worth anything, but I often said if I monetize, I prefer that the guest get a piece of that
yeah,
because people aren't tuning in to hear me, you know, they
yeah.
want to hear the guest. But I don't know how to make that work. And but I think when it comes down to it, I could be on here rambling on by myself, and who gives a shit?
To
Or
to me, what I do is worth more than any dollar I can make.
yeah.
Like when I got to interview Brooke Bundy,
Hmm.
at first, I'm sitting there going, okay, this is not going to be a big deal. I can handle this. But after I got done, I reflected. I'm saying to myself, this is a lady that I've seen in several TV shows, one
Yeah,
of my favorite movies, and I just got to talk to her for an hour and a half.
I had her
That,
on.
that
Yeah.
to me, that's more than any dollar I can make off of that.
Yep.
So, I'm gonna leave you with one final question.
Okay.
The final question is, and this is for all aspiring podcasters. What's your advice for someone that wants to do what me and you do every day?
Wow. Number, I'm actually kind of surprised I'm doing this. I'm still doing this. Next year will mark 10 years I've been doing the podcast. And a lot has happened for me. I got invited to my first convention, and I have business cards. I've gone to my first one in the States, this year, Chiller.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be on a plane, never planned on it. And I fell in love with Toronto. And, I've been to I think my brand's expanded, my worldview is expanded to not just New Brunswick, which nobody knows about or frankly cares about for that matter. But nonetheless, terms of people that I've had people ask me that before too, and uh, it helps to be interesting yourself. But then again, I don't find myself that interesting, and I still do this. But get yourself a good setup. Zoom helps. I have a background behind me as opposed to my dirty apartment behind me, which it used to be. Or you could do it at a radio station or whatever, like I did mine at CHSR. I still do a show down there, but in terms of pitching to guests, just I usually either go on Facebook or web pages or occasionally Instagram or Twitter, and I just introduce myself, tell them I do a podcast and where I do it out of, and tell them what I want to do, which interview them as part of my show. If there's an anniversary for one of their films or albums or whatever, I pitch that in there. Want to interview you in honor of the anniversary. It's such and such anniversary of this and that. And then I mention my accomplishments. I've done over this amount of interviews, since 2015. And then I will say, if interested, uh, please state dates and availability and dates and times of availability, plus their time zone for scheduling purposes.
Yeah.
Important. Because I need to know their time zone. And remember, folks, I've touched on this earlier. When they state a time, it's their time. So if you're in a different time zone, remember to adjust to their time. So if they say 10 o'clock a.m., look and see what, like in my situation, for example, I'm 4 hours ahead of Los Angeles, and I'm 1 hour ahead of you. Somebody says 10 o'clock a.m. their time, then in Los Angeles, then it's 2 p.m. my time in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Or if somebody says 10 a.m. in the morning in New York, then I know it's 11 a.m. my time here. Or if they say 10 a.m. in the UK, then I know it's 6 a.m. my time.
Yep.
So there's all kinds of that. Australia, for example, is like like they're like a day ahead or something of that nature. And I have to adjust that accordingly. Sometimes it's tricky, but I've done this enough times. I'm getting used to it. But I've come this far. I'd like to keep doing it, and hopefully have some greater things open up in the future. But right now, I'm just a lowly janitor in the city. I'm not looking down on that. That's what I do. And anybody that's gotten it like an independent project, I'm not going to turn you down. I don't do that. I love having the bigger guest. It's always nice, you know. You mentioned guests I haven't had on yet, Felissa Rose.
Yeah.
I'd love to get Felissa, and she said yes as well. But she's like doing a project like every other day.
Yeah, she's projects, she's traveling, she's taking care of kids. Like, how does this woman breathe?
Does she sleep?
I don't think she does. I think she's a zombie. That's good. That would be a perfect part for her.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it's been a great ride. And my suggestion for any podcaster is a final note. Don't say no to people unless they give you a reason to say no. If somebody's a rude asshole, then say no. But if somebody approaches you and you don't know who they are, find out who they are, listen to their pitch, say yes, let them come on, because I'll give you a good example of that. I had an author on named Charles Rosenay, who is the author of the book of Top 10 Horror List. And he approached me, sent me a private message about being on my show. And he pitched it to me. And I said yes. And I know he was turned down by somebody else. And he was directed to me. And I said yes. I've had Charles Rosenay on my show 3 times. And I'll tell you, I didn't know him from Adam when he approached me,
Yeah.
but that didn't stop me from saying yes. And I'll tell you what had come out of that. For one, he connected me with Tara Buckman from Silent Night, Deadly Night,
Yeah.
and she came on the show. And number two, when Lisa had phoned me and told me that she was going to be on the guest list for Chiller, Lisa phoned me, and it ended up being my first U.S. convention. Um, so when I announced that I was going to do Chiller, Charles Rosenay had approached me and said, "Hey, would you like to split a room?" Because it was taking place at, I think it was the Hilton, the convention was taking place at. And Charles was going to have a setup there. He was there helping Tara Buckman get set up, but he also was set up he had a bunch of books he had written, not just that one, but some paranormal books and whatnot. He had his own setup, but he approached me about sharing a room so that we could go half on a room. I said yes. It saved me on some cash.
Yep. Exactly.
That all came from just saying, yeah, come on my show.
Yeah.
And I get to know him as a person.
So you never know what's going to happen when you say that. Yes.
Exactly. You never know who you say yes to, who's going to return the favor. Creepy Ghoul out of Toronto. The only social media he has is his YouTube channel. And I caught wind of myself in one of his walk around videos for Horrorama, and I connected with him. And there's a possibility, it's not written in stone yet, he and I may be doing Frightmare in the Falls this year. I don't know on his end yet, because with him, it's hit and miss getting a hold of him and whether he'll go do this. But Horrorama hasn't happened in a couple of years, and because it's a more independent convention and a smaller con.
Yeah.
But you never know who you're going to show kindness to, who's going to show it back.
Yeah.
And that's where I go with that,
I
And
think my advice to anybody who wants to do a podcast, be yourself and have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't take it for granted. Don't take any guests, anything you're talking about, because this may sound, but we all live one life. And to me, like I did a video the other day, live your life to the fullest. And that's what I'm doing with my podcast. I'm having fun with it. If I make a quarter, it doesn't mean anything to me. It means that I got to have fun and talk to people that I enjoy talking to about these movies, whether it be horror or a action movie or a comedy, something we grew up on that reminds us how good life was growing up. So to me, that's my advice. Just have fun with it, guys.
And I'll give you another bit too. Scotty McCoy, I've had on the show, I think some 7 or 8 times now. And Scotty really showed me a lot of his character at one of the conventions because going back to 13th Fanboy, Scotty had my back at one of the cons when he approached somebody about some of the bullshit around that movie. And Scotty could have just as easily gone up and sucked up to this person. He didn't. I was actually like, wow, you didn't have to stick up for me like that, but he
Yeah.
did. When you open the door for somebody that's not what you call typically famous, you never know when they're going to have your back when you need them. That's important.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end this with, so 11 months and 2 weeks from now, we're going to be doing the 4th Greg Gilbert interview. Just saying, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm available, assuming I'm still alive. But
Yeah.
if you could have someone that you haven't had do your interview, who would it be?
Well, I would love to have Lisa Langlois interview me, and she said she would, but Lisa's been under the weather a little bit, and she's also in California visiting her son. So I'm like, okay. Um, I know in a Kinakuruba, I screwed her name up. I know that from the 2004 Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
She's open to it. She just couldn't do it now. Cindy Hines from The Brood. She also had a family situation she had to attend to, so but she'd be open to it. I try to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it
Keep it
only
fresh.
hit me on my 50th birthday. Not that I'm important, but when I'm laying on my deathbed, some 25 years down the line or something like that, hopefully, um, um, I wanted me to look back and something like this would be special. So I knew Jeffrey Mark, who's a great speaker. I mean, Jeffrey Mark has interviewed and been friends with people like Lucille Ball, um, Ella Fitzgerald, Mary Tyler Moore, Steve Allen, Milton Berle, Don Wells, Ethel Merman. That guy, his association with these people, and I've stayed in touch with him. He did those tributes, but he came on talking about his own career, and I knew he was the perfect one to interview me on my 50th birthday, and because he's just so well spoken, and he gives a great interview. Um, Nancy McLaughlin, who I'm closely affiliated with, I had her do my 51st. And I know you were one of the people I approached. I wasn't going to like normally I'm like try to get somebody before July 8th, but it kind of hit me that you know what, July's my birth month. As
Yeah.
long as I get one done before July 31st, who the fuck cares, you know? So I approached you on the spot here tonight, and I know you just got out of a 5-day stint in the hospital, but I thought, you know what? I should get Rob Mahoney
Yeah,
Did
but
you?
you know what that 80 song goes. I'm alive and kicking.
You're live and kicking.
Yeah.
Yep. So I thought this would be something fun. And we'll see. We'll see next year. But I'm certainly going to have you back on next year. I'll tell you that.
Right.
Yep.
So for everyone who has watched or will watch at one point, I am Rob Mahoney. My podcast is actually Mahoney's Madhouse, but today I'm your intern podcaster. Thanking Greg for his time, and here's to 10 more years, Greg.
10 more years. Absolutely. Hopefully I keep it going and make some more connections. And who knows? Who knows? Will I get Emma Stone? Will I get Emma Stone?
You
Well,
might,
one can wish.
yes.
But you
Dream,
know what?
dream.
I also believe in reality.
Well, I'm gonna do my little outro that I do on my show. We'll see everybody in 2 and 2. Remember
Two and
that?
two. Yep, 2 and 2. Well,
Love
Rob, I thank you for coming on to interview me for my 52nd birthday. I turned 52 on July the 8th.
I hope I
So
did okay.
yeah, so we're both 70s kids.
Yep. Yeah, I was 71, October 4th.
Oh wow, you were born in 71. I didn't realize you were older than me.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Well, I'll be 53 in 3 months or 2 months. Let's see, August. Yeah, 3 months. I'll be 2.5 months.
Oh
Two and a half.
wow.
I'll be 53.
53.
Yep.
Wow. I
I'm
don't know where the time has
just gonna get
gone.
more wild. I'm just gonna get more wild.
I don't know where when you get older, time just flies. Like I said, I remember when I started at the station in 2005. It's like I can't believe next year, come about January or February, it's going to be 20 years I've been with CHSR. It's like, what, where's the time go? Of course, there's people's been there longer than me.
Yeah.
So, like, wow, I don't know where the time goes.
Nope. I don't
Yeah.
either.
But hopefully, eventually, I'll be living in Toronto. I love Toronto, and it's where I'm hoping. We need a new prime minister
There you go.
because the one we have in 2024 just ain't cutting it. You know, just ain't cutting it. And
Now I practiced that opening, by the way, just let you know.
yeah.
The opening. This is Python's Paradise. I did that. I practiced for like an hour to make sure I didn't miss any cues.
Well, you did well. You did well. You did well. Well, Rob, I thank you so much for coming on here and contributing to my birthday month, and I can put 52 to rest,
Yep.
and we'll see what next year brings. And yeah,
Let bring more guests.
bring more guests. I got to reach out to more people. I haven't between work and sleep. I know Tommy Kovac from Splat from the Fast sends me a lot of guests, and I got to look into some of them, because he sends me people that are good. Here's the thing: between work and sleep, it's nice to get an opportunity like this where I can do this. But I got one day out of the week. I'm working a 14-hour shift and between about 3 or 4 buildings. So it's like, yeah.
Have fun with that.
Yeah. So I try my best to work around it. So the best I can. So yeah, you have it.
All
But
right,
anyway,
my friend.
absolutely. You have yourself a good night. You're off tomorrow, so you relax.
I will. Gotta go
Relax and
back to work Tuesday.
relax and bug your sister.
I will.
You're supposed to. I don't have any sisters, so I can't. So I have to bug my cat.
Well, there you go. Skittles, watch out. The podcast is ending.
Yeah, take care, man. God bless you and stay healthy. I hope you can keep yourself in good footing.
Thanks, man. Later.
All right. God bless.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.